Hello students. Now we are going to look into the impact of HR notes of 2023 with respect to the appearance of questions in prelims 2023. Now we would do these videos according to the cluster of the subjects. In this particular video, we would fundamentally look at the questions that were asked from environment, from geography, and also from the aspects of SNT. Now here, I would be showing you a sample about these questions which were asked and how was it reflected from the notes. Right? We will be looking at the sample size of these questions which were reflected. Now, starting with environment. Now, when we look at this particular question, this was the fifth question of set A, that when you look at this, which one of the following is the best example? Which one of the following is the best example with respect to of the repeated fall in sea level giving rise to present day extensive marshlands? Now, in this, two particular options were discussed in the question in the notes, and one particular option that we had discussed was Bhitarkanika mangroves. This was with respect to the notes dictation that was done in HR notes, and in this it was very clear that we did not have the keyword called marshland which was present. Then apart from that, when we look at the second one, that is run of Kutch, we had a similar discussion in the context of run of Kutch with respect to the marine national parks in India. And when we look at these marine national parks in India, and in the first line, the first marine national park, and when we look at the dimension, in the bracket I had mentioned these were salt marshes. So with that basic, what is happening is that clue of salt marshes will enable you to understand and reflect upon this particular question, and you will be able to answer this particular question. So that is one from the environment. Then apart from that, we look at in the context of uranium. And when we look at this uranium enrichment, now this particular question was seen in two of the dimensions of the HR sessions. One was with respect to the notes, the other one was with respect to the prelims analysis of HR 2023. And when we look at this, what we observe, it is asking about India despite having uranium deposits, depends on coal for most of its electricity production. In the PYQ analysis, as we see the questions from the coal and the energy being repeated, those dimensions were discussed, and thermal power constituting more than 55% of Indian energy basket. And the second dimension, uranium enrichment to the extent of at least 60% is required for the production of electricity. And when we look at this particular statement, we can see that this was directly mentioned in the notes, that is with respect to the uranium enrichment, because when we look at any of the materials which are existing, we see that most of the materials, either they are fertile, either they are fissile. So in this context, we have talked about uranium enrichment, and when we look at the uranium enrichment, it fundamentally talked about the limited quantity. And when we look at 60% of the enrichment that is being demanded in the question is something beyond limitations. So in that context, we will be able to eliminate that statement, and we will be able to arrive at the answer talking about statement 2 being incorrect and statement 1 being correct. And when we look at the third particular question, this is a question that is seen in the context of HR with respect to the foaming agents and the blowing agents. And not only that dimension, we also look at this particular question. It is asking about which of the following or how many of them have the HFCs being used. And in that, in the option, they talk about aerosols, they talk about foam agents, they talk about fire retardants and lubricants. And when we look at the HR notes, this particular question again was covered in two dimensions. In the PYQ analysis of 2014 question paper, as well as the science and technology notes of HR. And when you look at this, we discussed in the form of blowing agents, and we see here, there is one line which talks about major components when used this agent is halogen. Or when you look at this, it is flame retardants as well as foam structures. So fundamentally, this is what is enabling you to arrive at the answer with the help of knowing 2-3 sentences from the question. And when you look at the next question that is seen here, that is again with respect to the carbon markets, and the carbon markets were in detail discussed in the context of HR science and technology notes in convergence with environment. And when you look at one more question that is seen, That is, with respect to which one of the following countries have its own satellite navigation system, which happens to be the 57th question. And in this is again a direct reflection that we see from the HR notes of SNT, where I was discussing about different satellite systems. As we know, in India we have NAVIC, as US has GPS systems. Your GLONASS is for Russia, and the similar thing was dictated with respect to quasi-zenith in the context of Japan. So that is, there was a small tabular column which was given in the HR notes 2023, and where we see a question being asked directly and from which you will be able to answer this question. Then apart from that, we also look at one more question of SNT. That is a simple question on ballistic missiles and Agni 5. With respect to the second statement, Agni 5, we see that Agni 4 was discussed as one of the PYQ analysis sessions, and in extension of that, we had discussed about Agni 5 as well. And when we look at the first statement, the ballistic missiles, and when we look at this, we discussed about the nature of the ballistic missiles as well as the cruise missiles in this context. And based on that small discussion, we will be able to understand the statement 1 and statement 2. And on that basis, we will be able to answer this particular question easily again, right? Then, when we look at coming to some samples of geography, and when we look at some samples of geography, there was one question which is talking about the soil in tropical rainforest is rich in nutrients, and the high temperature and the moisture of the soil rainforest cause dead organic matter in the soil to decompose quickly. And when we look at this particular question, as one of the priority list, when we observe in the context of HR 2023, there was one priority list topic that was given, and that was with respect to tropical rainforest. From there also we could learn some points. Apart from that, regarding the nature of the soil was dictated in the class with respect to evergreen forest. That means we generally see acidic soils in evergreen. And when we observe this acidic soils in evergreen, we see the process of leaching, and because of which we see the soils turning acidic. That is a common process that we observe in the context of acidification of the soils and alkalization of the soils process. And here what we observe, we see that the soil in tropical rainforest is rich in nutrients. As it is acidic in nature, you definitely will not have the nutrient rich soils from which you will be able to answer this question again, right? Now, the next question is again from the geography. The temperature contrast between continent and ocean is greater during summers and in winter, and the specific heat of water is more than that of the land. And when I'm discussing the wind systems as part of the HR session 2023, I talked about the land breeze and sea breeze. And in that context of land breeze and sea breeze, I talked about the specific heat with respect to the land as well as the water, and the temperature contrast between the continents and the oceans. So that is a direct reflection again from the HR notes 2023. So one more sample size from the context of, in a seismograph, P waves are recorded earlier than the S waves. In P waves, the individual particles vibrate to and fro in the direction of the wave propagation, whereas S waves, the particles vibrate up and down at right angles. So when you observe the characteristic features here with respect to the P waves and S waves, we see that it is very clearly dictated in the class with respect to, this is the order of the waves, that is primary, secondary, love waves and Rayleigh waves. PSLR was the mnemonic that was given in the class. And again we see the movement of the wave and the movement of the material are in the same direction, that is to and fro direction. And when we look at the S wave, movement of the wave and the movement of the material are perpendicular, which is again the statement which it is talking about. That means it is very, very clear from these reflections with respect to the HR notes of 2023 and the prelims question paper of 2023, we see that we are fundamentally providing exam oriented content in HR sessions. So I would request all of you to fundamentally utilize the opportunity of HR 2024, which is starting on 26th November 2023. Because when we look at the main agenda of these high impact revision sessions, we fundamentally see equip you with knowledge, knowledge plus components, and also the practice dimension, which is very, very important. Whatever knowledge you learn, you're going to apply this knowledge in the tests. Okay, so we are focusing on the exam oriented content, the exam oriented nature of solving the questions, as well as some MCQ solving techniques which were useful in solving 2023 prelims, which was part again of HR 2023. Right, that's it for today. We would discuss about the other subjects in the consequent videos. Thank you.